What's going on, brothers? Um, so came up on this news clip and hearing about Deion Sanders, who used to coach, great football player, former football player. Now he's actually taking the coaching job for Colorado, and he used to coach for Johnson. I'm sorry, not Johnson, Jackson State for the football team. So it's been a lot of backlash of Deion Sanders since he's accepted the job. Something that I've noticed with a lot of our people is that you can't please everybody, brothers. You cannot. You cannot please everybody at all. You're not going to make people happy, but it is not your job to fix everything in this so-called black community that we have. You're only one man. Deion Sanders did a lot for that school, and because he was only getting 300,000 a year, that's it. And he used a lot of his money to help that school with uniforms and shoes. He did a lot for them kids to try to get some of them in the NFL. And he mentored a lot of them kids. A lot of them kids didn't even have a father. So he was a mentor. But because he chose to take a job, accept a job at Colorado, now all of a sudden he's a sellout. And it's kind of sad. Our own people will talk shit about you for no reason, all because you're trying to make a better life for yourself, for you and your family. They're not helping put food on the table, but as soon as you make a change, they want to try to throw dirt on your name. I have no problem with what he did. He's going to be making 5 million a year. 5 million a year in Colorado. But at Jackson State, he helped that team. He got the team to the playoffs and to the championship twice. And still they're throwing salt on him. Well, not salt, but they throwing his name under the bus. So, brothers, just to let you know, you can't please everybody at all, especially our own people. They want you to just. It's almost like they're like crabs in a bucket. Like they want you to be in the same predicament that you're in. I'm sorry, the same predicament that they're in. If they're in a low predicament, they want you to be in the same predicament. So, brothers, you got to move up. You can't just stay in the same place. And like I said, I have no problem with Deion Sanders said, but I'm gonna go ahead and play this, and I'll chime in here and there.
We're going to have one of the best coaching staffs assembled, some of the best scouts, some of the best kids that we're recruiting, and commitments already coming on the way as I speak.
So that is new University of Colorado head football coach Deion Sanders promising fans and his new players that he is going to bring the winning culture he established at Jackson State and HBCU in Mississippi to his new team.
And brothers, here's another thing too, because I'm gonna talk. Don't believe the hype about this HBCU, these so-called black colleges. A lot of people don't even know the history of the HBCU. Some people should take a history lesson on how it started. It wasn't started by no black man or no black woman. It was started by a white woman. So people need to take a history lesson on these HBCU. They have no idea. And the thing is, they're getting the same curriculum just like these regular colleges. So there's nothing that much special about a HBCU besides the fact that it's a so-called black college. That's pretty much it. So don't believe the hype about a HBCU.
How about that? Yeah, how about that? All right, you gonna do this thing.
So Sanders is now being criticized as a so-called sellout for leaving Jackson after many envisioned him altering the landscape of sports at historically black colleges and universities. He did land top recruits. He went 27-5 in 3 seasons and just won the school's second Southwestern Athletic Conference title in 2 years. Sanders will now try to replicate that success in a more competitive league with a Colorado team that just went 1-11. So joining us now, the perfect person to talk about that, Bomani Jones, a third-generation HBCU graduate who went to Clark Atlanta University. He's also the host of Game Theory with Bomani Jones, which will kick off its 2nd season on HBO and HBO Max in January. Wow, that is a giant lead-in to you. You have lots of accomplishments. Thank you this morning. So, you know, I kind of feel like we're talking about family business, like in front of everybody. You know what I'm talking about? Because there's a long tradition in the African American community about HBCUs and whether you go, whether you're not, and this. Why can't Deion Sanders just choose to be with who he wants to be?
Oh, he can go take whatever job he wants, but when you come into the first job and sell the idea that you are going to be the savior of HBCUs and you are going to raise the playing field, not just for Jackson State, but for everybody else, and you're going to do it because God told you to do it.
He said that.
Yeah, he said that. He explicitly said that God sent him to do this. So then when you leave, yeah, people are going to ask questions about what exactly it was. Now, I don't go into the sellout place necessarily, but I do think, he's the monorail salesman from The Simpsons. He went in, he sold the big dream. Now, if you paid any attention, you knew the dream he was selling wasn't possible. It was not an achievable one that he had, but he sold it and he got people to believe it.
You see how he just downplayed him like that, saying that it was impossible? He raised the bar on the school. He brought the team from a losing standpoint to a winning standpoint. Again, your own people are going to talk negative about you. It's kind of terrible. Your own people going to throw shade at you for no reason. But let's continue.
And then he chucked the deuce and left.
So you know Shannon Sharp, right?
Yes.
So and you've heard his comments.
Yes.
I'm sure. I want to play them for our audience because Shannon Sharp has a sort of a rising tide lifts all boats. If he did it for Jackson State, then maybe that helped the entire HBCU. Let's play this, and I want your response to it.
Deion did something that very few coaches are able to do. He leveraged his relationships. Skip, no football team had more uniforms than Jackson State except the University of Oregon. Under Armour, every single week, they got new helmets. They got new unis. He did this with Walmart. He took $150,000 of his salary and helped finish building the facilities.
He did?
He leveraged his
That's kind of sad. He had to use his own money to help fix the facility. Deion Sanders had to use his own money to help fix the facility. That's kind of sad. I don't know what type of support he was getting, but it didn't seem like he was getting much support.
His relationship with American Airlines, he brought eyes to HBCUs, Skip. There wasn't nobody talking about HBCUs, especially now. They're on television. That's because of him. He gave you a blueprint. Now follow the blueprint.
He's saying basically mission accomplished. What do you think?
Well,
And Shannon Sharp is right. He put out a blueprint for somebody else to follow. It's not, again, brothers, it's not your job you can't fix everything, brothers, but he put out a blueprint. And they're still upset, and your own people again are throwing shade at him. Kind of sad.
Part of it, and I love Shannon to death, part of where I disagree with him is so much of that was singular to Deion Sanders. Like, we do have to admit that he is the charismatic individual. Like, just because Deion could do it doesn't mean that everybody else can do it. That's the first part. The second thing, they're going to play in the Celebration Bowl, I believe, next week in Atlanta against the champions of the MEAC. They played in that bowl game last year. South Carolina State blew their doors off in that game. Do you know the head coach at South Carolina State? Can you name a single player at South Carolina State? I can't. It brought attention to Deion. It brought attention to Jackson State. You weren't going to bring attention to all these other schools in the time period that he was there. Like, if he was really going to accomplish that, that's a 10-year program, at least.
You're saying he had to stay.
Yeah.
And so 60 Minutes profiled him just like a month or two ago. And it was on that program. He said, I believe that God called me collect and I had to accept the charges. And then he said this. Let's play it.
It's a lot of folks sit back with Twitter fingers and talk about what they're going to do. And I wanted to go do it.
Do what?
Change lives.
That you do have a lot of, he's absolutely right. You do have a lot of people sitting on the internet talking a bunch of shit, eating chocolate chips, popcorn, probably some fat people. Ain't doing nothing for themselves, but they talking about what they could do. Lazy people sitting back on the computer just talking shit. That's every day. See it on Facebook, Instagram, but ain't doing nothing. Those are the same people that say, "Oh, I'll do this for my community," but they ain't doing nothing. Let's continue.
Change the perspective of HBCU football. Make everyone step up to the plate and do what's right by these kids.
Didn't he do that at least by starting it? And now, as Shannon was saying, is it up to others to carry it forward?
I mean, if he can go find another Deion Sanders, right? Like, that's the thing of this, is that if you're talking about establishing something long term, right? Something that is sustainable, the idea he got it started, now you go do it. I don't.
But aren't you making his blueprint argument? Because there are others who are in the NFL or former NFL players who are charismatic,
who could do it,
and who could step into
Deion
other
Sanders has
HBCUs.
spent the last 35 years telling us there ain't but one Deion Sanders. And now he's telling us go find somebody else to do what Deion Sanders does. You can't have this both ways. I don't judge him.
Sir, what are you talking about? Again, the man set out a blueprint. He did what he was supposed to do. Somebody could follow his footsteps. I mean, of course, you're not going to get another Deion Sanders, but somebody could follow his blueprints. Come on now. You acting like a child right now.
Him for taking the job at Colorado. They probably increased his salary by something like 15 times, right? I totally get that. It all makes sense. But what he did was something that college coaches do all the time, which is you have to sell people 4-year, 10-year plans when your plan is always 1 year at a time. That's the only way that you could really pull that off. And so he came in and he sold a long-term vision for what was going on at Jackson State, but his goals and ambitions were always to be a Power 5 head coach. My take has always been he went to Jackson State primarily because he wanted to be a head coach, but didn't want to ever be anybody's assistant coach. So he had to find somebody that would give him a job and make him a head coach, and so he could have that on his resume, and then he could take that to try to get the job that he actually wanted. Jackson State was the place that could do it, and he did a lot of good work while he was at Jackson State. But all the bigger, grandiose notions of what he was doing for somebody else, no, it was what it always is. He did it for Deion, and that's fine if you don't tell us that you're trying to do this for somebody else.
Okay, so so he didn't do it for the kids. He didn't do it for the school. Again, he put money out there for the school. He used his own money to help build certain things. He put people on the map, endorsements, but he did it just for Deion. So it was just all about himself only. I don't think Deion is really that selfish, brother. I really don't think he's that selfish, but let's continue.
Else.
But can't he do both? Can't he go to a program and be there for 3 years, only have 5 losses like he did, and bring the attention? Maybe the next person won't be, prime time. They won't be as charismatic as he is, but he still did bring attention to it. And what I've seen from the athletic director and other people is they were grateful for him, and they talked about him going on, and something he signaled because of the financial disparities here.
No, he's very good, but I think the magnitude of the financial disparity is so much greater than anybody realizes. I think the magnitude of the financial disparity between HBCUs and other FCS schools, the smaller division in Division I, is bigger than people realize it is. So there's room to criticize him for the way that he has left and for the fact that his initial rhetoric is not in line with his ultimate.
Again, what do you mean the way he left? I mean, did he leave? Is there a certain way you're supposed to leave? Again, you sound selfish. The man wants to move up, and you have a problem with that. Kind of sad there, brother.
What would you have him do? What would you have the man do?
Oh, well, I wouldn't have come in the first place and said that God sent me here to fix HBCUs, and God decided that in the middle of it you were supposed to leave? Right? I mean, like, the thing I've said is maybe God wants 10% of $5 million and not 10% of 375. If God can do math, I can understand why it is. He sold a dream and then walked out on the dream. People have the right to be critical of that. I also would have taken the job that he took at Colorado, right? It's not a judgment of the fact that he took the job.
Okay, so if you would have took the job, what is the problem? It now come on, brother. You're saying that you would have done the same exact thing that Deion did. But because he did it, you want to criticize the man. Okay, let's continue.
Job. But this is not in line with what he told us for all these years.
But the reason I'm glad we're having this conversation is because it does highlight those massive financial disparities. And so I guess the question is not just do you have to hire a charismatic coach who brings attention to your program to fix it? What's the other way to fix it?
The problem that we have here is if you watched, especially during the pandemic when everybody had all their crypto money and you had all these different schools that were like, yo, we now have more billionaires donating to our schools, plural, billionaires, because that's what makes this work really is those donations and big television deals. That's where the money comes from. We got 8 black billionaires in the United States, and you can name 6 of them, right? Like you may not know it off the top of your head, but they're all people that you know. The initial capital that is necessary, that's the hard part. At a school like Jackson State, in a city that's been choked off by the state of Mississippi for as long as anybody can remember and underfunded for as long as anybody can remember, the money they need and the things that need to be done, football is not the place where we're going to start with this in the first place. And at some point, we have to ask ourselves, does it matter whether or not the football team is great? Does it matter? Because everything that people were doing and giving money to serve these players that they now thought could go to the NFL could be done for all the players that they have anywhere, even if they're not as good at football as the ones that Deion
This is
Sanders
so weird for me because we used to talk about this sitting around the table as a kid. I lived blocks from Southern University, and everybody Southern Grambling, my family. So this is so weird to be having this conversation
At this table.
at this table about HBCUs and the athletic program.
We love having you.
I
Come back
appreciate
soon. Thank you, Bomani.
Come back every
very,
week
very
as,
much.
as often as possible.
And everyone should watch Bomani's show.
So that's pretty much it, brothers. I just wanted to show you, um, you know, our own people will stab. I'm not gonna even use the word they will stab you in the back, but it's like they don't want you to move on. They want you to stay in the same bucket with them, stay in the same dirt with them, and be unsuccessful. Brothers, it is not your responsibility to go fix this so-called black community. And if you really think about it, your community actually starts inside your home, not in these streets. There's nothing wrong with helping. There's nothing wrong with having ideas, but you can't just stay there all your life. It's almost like them thinking that, well, they expect millionaires, people that came out the hood, they expect you to go back into the hood and fix it, but you're not even doing anything for yourself. So, brothers, it's not your responsibility to go, quote unquote, fix the hood or fix this so-called black community that everybody keep talking about. We ain't got no community. A community has standards, and we ain't got none. We ain't got no culture. We ain't got no standards here. Everybody's doing whatever the hell they want to do. So, brothers, if they criticize you, oh well. Continue to keep moving up. On that note, I'm out.